There are some big new class changes coming to the next big patch. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Matt here, and welcome to this week's changes on the 11.0.5 20th anniversary PTR update. I'm going to be doing this video very quickly, and I'm going to be going over the changes very fast for those of you that just don't like the in-depth detail, but you're going to be able to get all the information you need in very small time. I also do want to mention only 95.8% of viewers subscribe to my channel, so if you're new here, be sure to drop a subscribe, as we've just recently hit 500 subscribers. Now we're on our way to 1,000. All right, so let's get right into this. This is the latest update. This was posted 13 hours and 5 minutes ago, the 20th anniversary update. Starting this video off, we're going to be starting off with Druids, as Druids is the first one on the list. Now it's balanced Druids. Balance of all things, once again grants 10 to 20% critical strike chance, was 8 to 16%, so that's a little bit of a buff right there. New moon damage increased by 20%, half moon damage increased by 10%, that's two big buffs there. Run of the Stars increases Star Surge and Starfall damage by 10%, was 12%, so that's a 2% nerf. Umbral Inspiration increases damage by 30%, was 35%, so that's a 5% nerf right there as well. And Circle of Life and Death removed. And also, Alun's Chosen, Lunar Calling increases Starfire damage by 100%, was 80%, so that's a 20% buff right there as well. Over to Hunters, Tranquilizing Shots empowered by Coda Tranquilizer will now prioritize players. Dark Arrow can now only benefit from Bleak Powder once per cast. Gaining Withering Fire now grants Death Blow. The Shadow Dagger's damage reduced by 90% now. Black Arrow's damage over time effect is now exclusive per caster. Okay, so they've changed that as well. Bleak Powder's cone size increased by 50%, and Bleak Powder's visual size increased. Yes, they needed to increase that. Now over to the BM Hunter. Dark Ranger, Withering Fire stacking aura duration increased to 3 minutes, was 1 minute. Withering Fire now requires 3 casts of Beast or Wrath to trigger, was 4. Bleak Powder damage increased by 100%. Shadowhounds now have Beast Cleave for their duration. Bleak Arrow's chance to trigger Death Blow increased to 20%, was 15%. So there's like a 5% buff on Bleak Arrows triggering Death Blow as well. Now over to the MM Hunter. Nuraba Palace 4-set bonus will no longer inconsistently consumed by trick shots and powered aim shots. The 4-set bonus will now consistently benefit all damage increases of trick shots and powered aim shots. Okay, that's nice. 4-set bonus will now behave properly with spell queued arcane shots and multi shots. For Survival Hunters, the range of Sikkim enhanced kill shots has now been reduced. Harpoon will now find an appropriate destination during the Rashanan fight in the Dawnbreaker dungeon. Okay, so I'm guessing there was an issue with Survival Hunter and the Harpoon. Over to mages, people's favorite. Frostfire Mage. Frostfire burst damage increased by 25%. Frostfire infusion damage increased by 50%. Isothermic core meteor damage increased by 15%. Isothermic core comet storm damage increased by 25%. So it seems like Frostfire hero talents are getting a nice little buff right there. Over to Spellslinger, Gravity Lapse cooldown increased to 40 seconds, was 30 seconds. Meteorites are now summoned instantly. So Gravity Lapse is the one that used to put people in like an almost stun type system, but we'll see what that is later on because I did kind of read through this beforehand. Arcane Missiles no longer consume Ice Flows if you have Slipstream Talented. And over to Spellslinger, Spellfrost Teachings procs now properly increases your arcane damage by 10% for 10 seconds. Over to Fire. Now Fire's obviously been underperforming, so let's see how they've been doing now. All ability damage reduced by 3%. Lit Fuse now has a 6% chance to trigger, was 4%. Lit Fuse no longer highlights Fire Blast. Lit Fuse is now displayed on the personal resource display. Explosive Ingenuity now increases Lit Fuse chance to trigger by 4%, was 3%. Explosive Ingenuities now increases Living Bombs damage by 50%, was 25%. Explosivo's Living Bomb damage increased while in combustion reduced to 30%, was 40%. Sparking Cinders now triggers 3 times per minute, was 2. Sparking Cinders damage bonus increase to 15% for Pyroblast and Flame Strike, was 10% for Pyroblast and 20% for Flame Strike. So this one seems that it's given 15% to both Pyroblast and Flame Strike, but 10% for Pyroblast and 20 before. So it's just kind of found a midway point. So your Pyroblast is 5% stronger, but your Flame Strike 5% weaker. For Sun Fury, Burden of Power now increases Pyroblast damage by 20%, was 15, so that's a 5% there. Burden of Damage now increases Flame Strike damage by 30%, was 60. So the Flame Strike damage buff after Burden of Power is now like a bit weaker, but that's fine. Glorious Incandescence now highlights Fire Blast. Okay, over to Monk, my favorite class. Shadowpan added an energy track aura. This aura now shows the player how much energy they have spent their next set of flurry strikes. Well, to be fair, I've had a weak aura for this entire time, but having an in-game aura just to automatically display now makes that whole weak aura depletable. Flurry charges are no longer cancelable and no longer have duration. All right, flurry strikes unleash energy trigger threshold is now 240 instead of 300. That's quite nice, to be fair, because 300 seemed a bit too much much, but now we've got a 60 energy refund, which is nice. Flurry Strike's damage reduced by 8%. Nerf. Flurry Strike accumulator threshold increased by 47%. Wisdom of the Wall bonus effect duration reduced to 16 seconds was 20%. Against all odds, duration reduced to 5 seconds was 6 seconds. Okay. So the whole point of all this was basically, as the developer notes say here, is knowing when Flurry Strikes goes off and just having it go off a lot more often. Over to Windwalker, Blackout Kicks damage increased by 20%, Flurry of Zwen damage increased by 40%, so that's a big buff right there. Fixed an issue that caused Courageous Impulse to incorrectly buff the damage of Blackout Kick more than intended when multiple stacks are active. Okay, I didn't know about that bug. Fixed an issue that caused Courageous Impulse to incorrectly buff Teachings of the Monastery's Blackout Kick. Over to Sub Rogue, as you can see, Death Perception now also increases symbols of death damage by 3 to 6%. Shadow Blade's cooldown reduced to 1 minute and 30 seconds was 2 minutes, and the duration reduced to 16 seconds was 20 seconds. All right. First dance duration bonus for the next Shadow Dance increased to 4 seconds was 3 seconds. Now, this is the one that a lot of people are actually worried about, is Warriors, because I know that they've done so many changes over Warriors lately, and especially Arm Warriors being completely like knocked out of the park. I know they've tried to increase their single target damage, but their AoE has become useless, which kind of overall makes the class itself a bit weak. So over to Colossus Hero Talents. Arterial Bleed causes Colossal Might to increase the damage dealt by deep wounds and rend by 3% per stack was 2%. No Stranger to Pain increases total damage ignored by Ignore Pain by 20% was 15%. All right, over to Slayer, we have Overwhelm now stacks up 10 times, it was 12 times. Culling Cyclone, bonus Blade Storm damage reduced to 15% was 20%, and the Opportunist now increases the damage and critical strikes of your next Overpower or Raging Blow by 25% was 30%. Over to Fury, Raging Blow damage increased by 25%, but this does not affect Reckless Abandon's Crushing Blow, so it's only for Raging Blow, not Crushing Blow when you're in power. Bloodthirst damage increased by 30%, and then once again, this does not use the Recklessness Abandons Bloodbath. It doesn't have an increase of 30% there, it's only for the Bloodthirst one, the original one. Currently, Reckless Abandon is outperforming Anger Management in all situations, so we're bringing them close in power by bringing up Raging Blow and Bloodthirst base damage, which will also improve Fury's baseline single target damage. Now, we have some item changes here for Blackrock Death's Anniversary event for PvP combat. So Molten Furnace absorbs 67% in PvP, Naglaring damage reduced by 70% in PvP, Spire of the Stone Shaper absorb is reduced to 90% in PvP, Flame Wreath damage reduced by 50% in PvP, Force of Magma damage reduced by 50% in PvP, Circle of Flame health and mana reduced by 50% in PvP, Force of Will damage reduction reduced by 50% in PvP, and the Long General Sword stat bonus reduced by 50% in PvP. Over to mages. Now, Spellslinger, it says here, Gravity Lapse is now a root while in PvP combat. That's crazy because I actually thought they were going to give you guys a stun, but now it seems like they're giving it a root. So, and that's a bit interesting, but and now it also prioritizes players over pets. So it should have always prioritized players over pets. I assume if you used it in a certain area with pets, it would prioritize the pets over the player, but now they've seemed to have fixed that. Now that is the update for the 11.0.5 20th anniversary PTR update. Let the debate go down in the comments. Everyone like fill each other in, help each other out. Make sure to be nice and friendly towards one another about each other's classes. So that is everything. I've pretty much read it out to you and just covered over the entire thing. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on this video if you're new here, and I'll catch you all in the next video.